I'm Anthony. I've got Ken here with me.
How's it going?
From CAPY Games. We're going to show off some Super Time Force, which I'm very, very excited to do.
Me too.
Let's jump into it.
Cool. All right.
So for people who are maybe unfamiliar, tell us a little bit about Super Time Force.
So Super Time Force, as you can tell, it's a sort of retro-inspired 2D run-and-gun shooter.
It's a big departure for an indie game.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we try to have pixels and stuff.
Yeah.
But it has a sort of a time-traveling twist. So the mechanic is that at any moment you can rewind or fast-forward time so that you can sort of see the future or even change the past.
Okay.
And every time you do that, you also add a new iteration of yourself to the timeline. So as you're rewinding time and jumping back in, you're creating more and more copies of yourself, sort of building up this huge army of yous to sort of take on the enemy forces.
Awesome.
So it gets kind of crazy, and it's super hard, kind of like the old school games were.
Yeah.
But hopefully not a frustrating way, because death is sort of part of the game. You die, you learn what happened, you rewind, make a new version of yourself. Die again, now there's 3 versions. Die 20 times, now there's 20 of you. So hopefully it's difficult, but in an interesting, fun way.
That's kind of an interesting thing in terms of strategy and difficulty balancing too, right? So if you are a player who is not as great at this, all of a sudden you can have 20 or 30 of yourself at one point.
Exactly. So yeah, you can play the game like I want to ninja it and just like do it all with one guy and do some crazy dodging and stuff. Or you can, you know, sort of take it a bit easy, die a few times, but then use that fact that you have 10 guys and just sort of like kill someone with 10 guys shooting at them at once.
And I would imagine that also there is some strategic stuff in there too, where you have built certain areas where you're going to need a ton of guys.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of playable characters. I think in the final game there's 16 different unlockable characters. Each of them have their own sort of attacks and abilities.
Is the end of that? I'm sorry. Is the end of that equation time travel equals don't?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know, we made sure the science was really accurate here.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I guess I'll explain the story a bit. So it's about this guy. His name is Dr. Rapitsky. He invents time travel, and as soon as he does that, the whole world kind of, you know, goes to crap, and he realizes that somehow this affected, or it somehow caused some kind of apocalypse. And then he meets his future self, which is this guy named Commander Rapitsky, and he's sort of this really you know, he's this commander who the government granted him all this money so that he can go back and accomplish his mission, which he made it his personal mission to go back and fix the mistakes of the past.
Awesome.
So the game is sort of about him recruiting this team of time-traveling soldiers, the Super Time Force, and jumping through different time periods and sort of just kicking ass.
Awesome.
And as you do that, you discover, you know, there's this nemesis who's following you around. And you also realize that what you're doing is probably not the most responsible thing in the world.
I like that just as I was thinking, just as I was wondering what happened to his other eye, his past self actually asked the same thing.
Yeah. So here we're introducing the 3 main characters. You have Jean Rambois, he's sort of the machine gun guy with a spread shot. You have Amy, who's the sniper who has lasers that can shoot through walls. And then you have Shieldy Blockerson, aptly named. So he's sort of the defensive character, which you can do really interesting things by reflecting bullets and creating force fields. So, you know, that's an example of 3 different abilities that you can sort of figure out how to get them all to work together to tackle weird situations.
Excellent. And so, wow. So I'm thinking about dealing with not just 3 different characters like we have here now, but I'm thinking about dealing with 16 different ones and multiple copies of each.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty crazy to balance.
Yeah, so it gets pretty crazy, but like, so as you play, like you don't start off with everybody, you start off with the 3, but as you play, you sort of unlock characters, and you can unlock them by just finding them in a world and you save their lives and they join you, or, you know, you finish certain worlds and you unlock certain characters. So you'll sort of learn each character one at a time. So we opened up a whole bunch of characters for you right off the bat. So I'll start off with Jean Rambois. So you can charge up your weapon and do your secondary. You can blow away enemies, and it's awesome. But then the moment you die, you can sort of stop time and then sort of like figure out, okay, what can I do? I know there's an enemy there now. So let's get Amy to run ahead and kill him. Bam. So now he didn't die. So what happens? It forms sort of a time paradox.
Right.
So you saved his life. So now you can actually grab him. He becomes a power-up. So now you're more powerful, and you have the combined abilities of both. So not only... Oh, okay, I just lost him because I got hit. But not only do you have all these different unlockable characters, you can sort of combine them as well.
That's interesting. So everybody you save kind of becomes like a Gunstar Heroes, like mashing of the different guns together.
So, there's all these different things that you have to think about. So here's an example. There's this guy over there. His name is Jeff Leopard, and then he's going to get blown away by this robot. And, maybe it would be a good idea to save him. So let's rewind time. How can we save this guy? Well, let's just destroy this wall even faster. And then destroy him, hopefully fast enough. Oh, we weren't fast enough. So 2 guys wasn't fast enough. Maybe 3 guys will be fast enough. Oh, got it. So now you saved Jeff Leopard.
Nice.
And now he's part of your roster. So now you can see what he can do.
That's great.
He's got a rocket launcher, and you can lob grenades. So as you progress through the game, you'll be finding these characters hidden throughout the worlds, building up your team. And you
What did you just do there?
So there's slow-mo power-ups that you can do that will trigger time to slow down, which allows you to dodge bullets a lot easier. There's all sorts of collectibles you can find in the level. So there's these clocks that give you more time because you have a limited amount of time. You can also explore and find these yellow things that we call glorbs. So these things are tied to sort of badges. So you'll want to explore levels and sort of find all the glorbs in the level. And once you do that, you can earn a badge for that level. And then badges are another way to unlock additional characters. So you can play the game once and just sort of breeze through the level, but then you probably want to go back and explore a bit more. And as you unlock characters, some of them have abilities to navigate to certain areas that others can't.
Gotcha.
So you'll probably be wanting to revisit. And I'm dying a lot because I'm trying to talk and play Super Time Force at the same time, which is very difficult to do.
So you gave a talk this week at GDC.
Yes.
Which I find the subject of this extremely fascinating because you were trying to figure out how to deal with all of the different problems of time travel as it relates to gameplay.
Yeah.
By also trying to think about them as they relate to physics.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of interesting. Like, I guess when most people think about I want to make a time travel game, there's certain problems that you have to deal with, but they're very game engine-y, programmatic problems. Like, okay, how do I implement rewinding and saving the world state of all the entities, very programmy things. And that's, that's a tough challenge. But a lot of games have dealt with that before. You have Prince of Persia that had that awesome rewind mechanic.
Yeah.
Braid, of course. So this is a sort of problem that many people have tackled before. But as we developed this game, we sort of realized that that's not the only problem. There's another problem, which is how do time paradoxes affect your gameplay, your game mechanics, and your game design?
Well, you see it simply here, kind of, right? Which is if you get to the point where if you save somebody right before they died, it's not like you worried about, does that person still exist? Do they run along beside you? You save that by kind of having them meld into you.
Yeah.
But there are larger things that come up too, right?
Yeah. So I guess you can think about it in terms of when you alter the past, obviously things in the future are going to change, sort of the butterfly effect. That's something that I talked about.
Right.
So most of the time when you change the past, you would think either, okay, maybe it would be beneficial to the future, or maybe it would be detrimental. But in reality, it's pretty much always going to be detrimental. Like, players are going to end up running into a wall or getting shot when they didn't get shot before.
Sure.
So that was one of the major problems. Anytime you went back and changed the past, you would end up just making all of your guys die, which meant time travel mechanic was kind of useless as a gameplay tool. So that was one of the challenges that we had to sort of figure out how to tackle. So the way we approached it was we sort of took a hint from thermodynamics, which is kind of weird, and we sort of treated the level like a thermodynamic system. What does that even mean?
So everything wants equilibrium, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in a I can't even say it. That's how. Anyways, in a thermodynamic system, yeah, it's always trying to approach a certain equilibrium.
Yeah.
And we call that entropy, and that sort of is a way of measuring how evenly all the energy sort of spreads out. Like,
Yeah,
for example,
it's like when you open up a window in a hot room and cold air rushes in because of the
exactly.
differences in pressure.
Yeah.
So how does that apply to a video game level, though?
So we thought of our own definition of entropy. So instead of equilibrium being sort of, the energy is sort of equalizing everywhere, we thought, what if it's the state where all the enemies are dead, but all the players are still alive? And when we think like that, then we sort of enforce the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy must always increase. Or in other words, you must always try to move towards this equilibrium. So that means that anytime we make changes to the timeline, anytime we alter the past, we have to only allow certain things to happen and disallow other things to happen. So we only allow things to happen that will not be detrimental to the player.
Okay.
And we disallow anything that will. So we pick and choose the things that actually happen in modified timelines, which is kind of odd because it's not logical sometimes. Like you'll see guys not dying with bullets passing through them, or them running through doors that have been closed on them.
Yeah.
So there's all these weird things that are going on behind the scenes to sort of.
But it's all trying to just level it out, so it's actually. It may look like it's giving enemies a slight advantage, but in reality, it's equaling everything out for the player.
Yeah. So hopefully, because there's so much craziness happening, people don't see these weird inconsistencies. And that was sort of part of the goal of this game. On the surface, it's a very simple. Yeah, I understand. Run and gun, shoot, see robots, explode them. That's sort of the level that we want people to play at. Enjoy a simple game, but at the same time, anytime you're dealing with time mechanics, it's really difficult, almost impossible. So
I love that all of this stuff is the underlying structure in a game where you're playing as a character named Shieldy Blockerson.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so
that makes me so happy.
Yeah. And there's also a character named Zachosaurus.
Yep.
Which
I love Zachosaurus.
Your favorite character. Skateboarding dinosaur who can spit acid. So we try not to take this game too seriously, even though the underlying, technical problems are incredibly serious. So I think that's an interesting thing about this game and the development of it. And it's also one of the reasons why it's been taking so long. I know a lot of people are always wondering, we've seen the game so many different packs. What's taking so long? You know? Try to deal with time paradoxes and see how quickly you can do it. So
that's got to be the first time any developer has ever answered that in terms of like a game delay.
Yeah, time paradoxes.
Yeah, well, have you tried dealing with a time paradox?
You make a
jerk.
A game. Internet. Anyway, so you're fighting a giant robot, and here's another example of where one guy shooting rockets probably not good enough, so get two guys shooting rockets.
And I want to talk about the art style here for a moment. That robot is crazy beautiful looking.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole world is. But tell me about the art style and the direction here.
Well, I guess I should tell you about the artist. So most of the game most of the art for the game was done by two twin brothers, Mike and Vic Nguyen. So it's kind of interesting that we have twin brothers who do amazing pixel art.
I actually thought there was only one.
Yeah.
And I would run into Mike and I would keep calling him Vic. Yeah. Because Vic was the one I met and was introduced to.
Yeah. So they're used to that. So we interchange them all the time. We actually don't know which one is which. But yeah, at the studio, we're big fans of pixel art. Our background is we started by making like mobile phone games and Nintendo DS games. So we have a lot of experience making pixel art, and we also believe that pixel art, it's not just sort of a style for nostalgia's sake. We think it's a valid art style in itself. We also worked with Super Brothers on Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery.
Right.
And that was another sort of example of, you can take pixel art to a different level and do things that people haven't seen before, but they still appreciate it as something, beautiful and new, and not just this looks like Atari and whatever.
Sure. Well, I think there's a tendency for people because, especially with indie games, when budgets are so tight, usually the first thing that gets thrown away is the budget for an outside artist, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a tendency for a lot of people to think of pixel art as programmer art and placeholder art.
Yeah.
But you guys do a really wonderful job of working with people who are able to make their own style come through. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't know if that's true, because I think doing pixel art is just as much work as doing hand-drawn art, because a lot of care has to be taken, has to go into every single pixel that you place. So I wouldn't say it's any less or more work than it would be for a traditional art style, but it's just something different, and I don't know. For some reason, a lot of indie developers really enjoy that. I guess because most of us grew up playing games of that sort of style.
Sure.
So we're influenced by those kinds of things.
As we jump into the next bit here, let's get some of the nuts and bolts of this. We are playing. What system are we playing on right now?
So right now we're playing on Xbox 360.
Okay.
But we will also be launching the game on Xbox One.
Okay.
So that's super exciting through the ID at Xbox program, an amazing program for indies. So right now we're sort of in the QA phase, and we're hoping to wrap up and get through certification to have the game out by May, June-ish, if all goes well.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been a long road, but we're super excited.
I don't know how much you feel comfortable talking about this or you want to talk about this, but you guys have been working on it for a while, and for a while, every time I talked to you, you had like crazier and crazier, like things were definitely being thrown at the wall, right, to see what stuck.
Yeah.
And at one point, you were telling me about like you were toying around with having like 100 characters in the game or something like that.
Yeah.
What sort of stuff did you pick and choose to sort of make the game work correctly? Were there things that you tried that just didn't work, and things that you thought weren't going to work that just wound up being perfect?
Yeah, for sure. So part of the reasons why you've seen it in so many shows is because we really take the player feedback to heart. Like we're trying to create something that's sort of weird and hard to understand. I mean, this is a mechanic that not a lot of people are familiar with. So we really wanted to make sure that what people thought and what people thought the game should be, what made it more understandable to people. We made some significant changes in the game based on feedback. So one example is originally the game was just you die and it automatically rewinds you. But we felt, based on seeing how players play the game, it allows for more strategy if you can manually scrub through time and rewind yourself.
Yeah, I think the first one that I played was the instant rewind one. Yeah.
And different other things like just UI clarity, how to communicate different things, because communicating things that happen across time is difficult and not something that you're used to. Having people think about the game in terms of like, I just want to run ahead and play and run ahead and play. Whereas now you got to make them think about, I want to go back and do this faster. So yeah, like here's another good example. So this guy has 2 buttons that you have to hit. So you don't think linearly. You think, okay, well, I'll send one guy over there, hit that button, I'll hit this button. Now you've done it twice as fast.
Awesome.
So yeah, so we've definitely thrown out a ton of ideas. Yeah, as you said, like we were ambitious and we're like, yeah, let's have 100 different characters. But it really came down to how do we differentiate the characters. There was also some characters that were probably too offensive. I mean, some of them were kind of drawing the line. We have a guy named Squirty Harry, who is a playable piece of feces, I guess you could say.
All right.
But he has a magnum, of course, and his special attack is that he can fart and then detonate the fart with his magnum.
And he's in the game.
He's in the game.
He's one of the ones that was not deemed.
Yeah. So he made the cut, and it was kind of funny because we got emails from Microsoft, who is helping us with QA and ratings and stuff like that. And part of the the form that they had to fill out was all the things that we had in the game. So I think poo coils was something that was on an official form that somebody at Microsoft had to actually write. So yeah, we're happy about that.
Nice. Another thing is talking about the rewinds. I don't know if this is still the truth, but I remember initially when I played, that you had a limited number of rewinds.
Yeah.
Is that still true?
Yeah, so that's still the case. So you can rewind 30 times.
Okay.
We took the number 30 because...
Contra?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Contra is pretty much impossible with the 3 lives you're given. I don't know what humans can possibly do that. So, you know, we just decide, you know, this is a very Contra-inspired game, 30 lives. I guess another reason is because if we let the player do this hundreds or thousands of times, you would probably break your Xbox 360. So we don't want that to happen.
Nice.
So here we're in the dino world. So Commander Rapitsky thought, hey, you know, dinosaurs are rad. It sucks that they were extinct, so let's go back and save them from extinction. So that he makes this mission. And this is also where you rescue.
It's a terrible mission. He is a terrible commander.
Yeah.
I also like talking about the butterfly effect again. I like that the pod immediately lands on 2 dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you know, these guys aren't very responsible, and they're just doing things on a whim because they have money to do this.
Do you have any idea on other than May, June? Do you have any idea on pricing or anything like that yet?
I think
downloadable.
Yeah, it's going to be Xbox Live Arcade.
All digital.
I think we're aiming for the $15 price point.
Nice.
But it's a fairly chunky game. As you can see, there was 6 worlds that you can select from, and then once you beat those, you unlock the final world. Each world has a handful of levels and boss battles and mini boss battles, plus all the characters you unlock. We also have a lot of hidden features which we don't want to really give away yet.
Okay.
But let's just say we're a big fan of speedrunners.
I was just about to ask.
You know, amazing games done quick. You know, one of our favorite things to watch anytime that happens.
And it just feels like such a perfect vehicle for speedrunning too,
Yeah.
right? Because like you said, there's got to be a balance to every level about what number of characters is the best, what number of characters is going to be the fastest.
And what characters can do this weird thing to get through this one area that other characters can't do. So yeah, we have some hidden features in the game that sort of encourage and keep track of these speedrunning things. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what people do, how people break the game. You know, some developers...
That's such a good attitude.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's a compliment. I mean, some developers might be offended, like, oh man, they're just breaking it, and you know, they're not playing it the way we want. But I think if a player is willing to take the time to sort of analyze all of your systems and really dig into it, I think that's a compliment. You know?
For sure. I love watching Cosmo Wright.
Yeah.
And when he got the HD version of Wind Waker, he was like, well, let's go in and see what Nintendo ruined for me.
Yeah.
Let's see what they fixed.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, like all of the different things that he knew to try, or all the different things that he found to glitch his way through a game.
Yeah, exactly. But again, you know, it just shows how much people care about the games that they play. So I think it's amazing. And I can't wait to get this into people's hands and see what kind of crazy stuff they end up finding.
Boaz Lawrence asks, who's lead designer?
So the team is me. I'm the lead programmer / designer. We have Dan Vader, who is the writer and lead level designer. We also have Chris Piotrowski, who's the creative director at CAPY. He also helps out with design as well. So, you know, it's anytime you're in a small team, you know, you kind of got to wear all the hats.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would say everybody on the team sort of contributed to the design, from the artists to the sound guy.
There.
Yeah, well,
what's your game? What's your plan here, Ken?
My plan is to, I don't know.
There we go.
Okay.
And an HDMI error.
Yeah. So yeah. So the design sort of came from everybody, I guess. You know, so we're all fans of these types of games, so we all had different inspirations, games that we enjoyed playing. And a lot of the inspiration did come from those old games, like Contra, Metal Slug, Gunstar Heroes, as well as just 80s and 90s culture, which hopefully shines through. I mean, we don't have skateboarding dinosaurs these days anymore, which is a shame.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's cool that as a studio we're able to...
This guy's got like a very... like you were talking about 80s and 90s cartoons.
Yeah.
He's got like a very Cadillacs and dinosaurs sort of look to him.
Yeah, we really had to Mike and Vic, the 2 artists. They're a bit younger, so they might not get some of these references. So we have a good time like sending them websites and videos of these kinds of things. It lets us look back and enjoy all these crazy things which we haven't seen for a while.
Smack in the Face asks on YouTube, is the time mechanic for bosses? I mean, you showed some simple back and forth switching, like you said, to speed up beating a boss.
Yeah.
Are there areas of the game that just require a specific number of characters to get through, or did you try to stay away from that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That was sort of a design question that we had right off the bat. Like, do we require X number of things? But I think by doing that, you sort of discourage the ninja players from being able to like one-man an entire level.
Yeah.
So we want to maintain that ability that you can, if you're good enough, do it with one guy. But you know, if you're struggling, then multiple guys will help you out. So yeah, no, there are no bosses that will force you to use more than one character to do more than one thing at the same time. But you know, it'll help. And bosses are designed to be much easier once you have different people doing things at the same time.
Tell me about that bro icon that's coming up right here.
Where did that come from? That's the Arnold Schwarzenegger from Commando? Or was it from...
Okay.
Or was it from
Predator?
Predator.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember. Someone on the internet is
someone's gonna
get
tell
that.
us.
But yeah, you'll be able to find that GIF of him doing the handshake and the world exploding. So that's...
but that's just an end of level thing. That wasn't...
so that indicates the fact that you saved someone from dying.
Gotcha.
And it's sort of an icon that represents this guy's a power up, so you can pick me up and get my ability.
Gotcha. Nmaster64 says the speedrunning community thanks you.
Awesome.
We have enough logistics issues with different versions as it is. It's nice to know when developers aren't working against us.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, sometimes when developers work against you, I think that makes it even funner because you're like, these guys don't want us to do this. So now, you know, it sort of encourages you to try even more.
Can you fix it faster than we can show the world it?
Yeah, exactly.
That sort of thing. Also, you know, obviously we're playing with 30 different characters on screen at once. Is it going to be strictly single player? Is there a two-player co-op at all, or?
It's when we originally had the idea for this game, we thought, okay, this would be a pretty cool game as like a couch co-op kind of game. But then as we sort of got deeper into the time mechanics and trying to flesh out all the cool things you could do with time, we realized I don't think it's possible to have two guys changing time at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So it's unfortunate because you would think that it would be pretty well suited for that. But
I get annoyed enough when somebody accidentally jumps on my head in New Super Mario Brothers.
Exactly. But imagine they rewind you and prevent you from spawning. Then it's totally another story or totally another level of trolling somebody.
Oh my gosh, I love Atlantis' vacation destination in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, here's another example of Commander PC wants to go back and then prevent Atlantis from sinking. So he takes you to Atlantis, where you can sort of... Now you get to see what Atlantis really was about, which is sort of this...
cheesy tourist town.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a water park.
I appreciate the Point Break reference there. So it's been announced for Xbox platforms. Are you guys thinking about coming anywhere else?
We would like to, but for now we're just focusing on, 360 and Xbox One. So we'll see what happens.
Ryokushin asks if the game is going to come with any sort of level editor.
That's probably not for the 360 and Xbox One versions, but we're always open to see what the community really wants. I think it would be amazing. I know a lot of games have done really well opening up the level editor to people, and yeah, I think that's a great way to sort of extend the life of a game. Yeah, like the level editor, it's probably not your traditional level editor because you have to understand a lot of the problems with setting certain things up and the time problems that it can create. So there's a certain level of expertise you have to have in order to create certain levels. But again, I think this is the kind of stuff that a community would enjoy doing. So I think that would be a great idea, and hopefully we'll see what happens with the level editor.
Do we have some sort of a cave woman character going on here?
Oh, right. So this is... Her name is Cleo. She's actually the daughter of Commander Rapitsky.
Gotcha.
And maybe we might get to that world where you rescue her.
Definitely looks very post-apocalyptic.
Yeah. So Commander Rapitsky goes ahead to the 1990s, which is about 10 years from the 1980s, and he realizes that the world is, gone to heck. That's also where you rescue another character named Melanie Gibson, who might be maximally mad. So maybe you can get where that world is inspired from.
Let's see. Any advice to one-man teams who are moderately good at art, programming, design, and music? Is there one that is better to specialize in? It comes from King Dubaru.
That's a good question.
I feel like you're going to say programming, because you're the programmer.
Yeah, I'm a programmer, but I realized game design is just as hard as programming. And if you're just a programmer with no sort of design understanding, you're probably not going to make a good game, no matter how good of a programmer you are.
Was this your first foray into lead designing?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Like, I think as game programmers, we all sort of enjoy making stuff on the side, but it's sort of just for fun, and we never really take it too seriously. But yeah, for me, this is the first time of sort of taking on a serious project and thinking about it from all angles. So it sort of gave me an appreciation for what designers have to do, I guess. A lot of people don't understand what designers have to do. They think they're just there, issuing orders to other people to do all the work. But in reality, a lot of brain power is required to think about all these things. Yeah, so back to the question. I guess for me, I think programming and game design will probably allow you to do a lot of things. I mean, you could get by with some very basic art. I mean, a lot of games are just circles or squares and triangles, and they communicate, the concept of the game well enough. So yeah, just keep making games, I guess. That's the most important piece of advice. It'll take you a while to sort of find good ideas, and a lot of mediocre ideas will, you'll have to go through those first.
Sure. I feel like that's anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Largo Sensei says, reminds me of the Super Meat Boy end of level screen, but playable.
Yeah, exactly. So
is that part of the genesis of this thing?
Yeah, so that was one of the inspirations as well. I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, oh man, that's crazy. There's like hundreds of guys running around, everyone's dying, flying all over the place. Another inspiration was Trackmania. I don't know if you've seen these crazy 10,000 cars on the track, and it just looks like a river of cars. And I thought that was like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So, making a game that can look like that, I thought would be amazing. So yeah, for sure, that was one of the inspirations.
Azure Mirage wants to know, who do you think's doing it right in the indie community right now? And also, are you looking forward to Mighty Number 9?
Mighty Number 9, who isn't, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course, we're big fans of Mega Man, another one of the inspirations. You can tell just by looking at the level select screen. It's very Mega Man-esque. You choose your world, and then it opens up the Dr. Wily in the middle.
Yeah. I love how he's just like, fine, you won't let me take a character with me?
Yeah, exactly.
Fine.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're all sort of looking forward to seeing what he does, but, we're all pretty confident in that it's going to be amazing. Yeah, in terms of indies, it's hard to say. I can't think of an indie who's not doing it right. I guess if I had to say offhand, I'm a huge fan of Lambier. I love all of their stuff.
Yeah.
Ridiculous Fishing. I can't even count how many hours. And of course, they just released Luftrausers, which was amazing.
Which I've had downloaded and have not had a chance to play yet.
Yeah, exactly. So. And
I feel like they have a process similar to you guys, and maybe it's just it comes out of being in the small teams. But it's just like they have this basic concept, right? And then it's just like, well, what can we throw at it?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like they go through a lot of iterations, just like you guys.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's probably how most indies do it. They start with something small, and I think that's important. I mean, if you start with something too big, you're just going to get lost. So it's important that if you have an idea, keep it small, keep the scope small, and then you can always add to it. Whereas if you have a huge idea, sometimes it's difficult to take things away without significantly changing it.
People are really stoked that you're answering programming questions. Van Gald would like to know what your language preference is. What does CAPY make their games in?
We do everything in C++. When we started with our mobile games, I guess, like the Java phones, I don't even know if some people remember Java cell phones. Of course, we're doing it in Java. But yeah, all of our stuff is in C++. For our other projects, we use a scripting language called Lua. I don't know if people are familiar with Lua, but a lot of people at the studio are big proponents of using Lua as a scripting language. So yeah, it's another big thing that CAPY uses. But in terms of like tech, we usually build out most of the tech that we need for our games ourselves.
So you do all custom engines and things like that, and
Yeah.
your own tool sets, your own level editors,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah, because we find for small games, sometimes it's a lot of work to make an engine that's big enough to handle everything, whereas you can just create a small engine that handles just the things that you need.
I just love how you were just multiple versions were threading through different parts of the crowd as it was falling. That's awesome. Speedrunning929 says, is this game going to have blast processing or mode 7? Which one did you guys decide to go with?
Definitely mode 7.
Yeah.
I mean, blast processing, I don't know if the 360 can handle blast processing. It doesn't have the same chips anymore as the Genesis does. So,
Absolutely.
But we were able to, convince Microsoft, include the mode 7.
That's great.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at one more area here real quick.
Cool.
If you have another 10 minutes to spend with us.
No problem. Let's see. All right, let's go into 1990X. So this is where Commander Rapitsky has his child.
Nice. I love their cutesy baby slang that they use.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. The downy lows.
Yeah, so the story here is that he sends you a few years in the future to find his kid because he's sick and tired of dealing with babies. Because babies are dumb and annoying.
Babies are lame, man.
Yeah.
Nate Fantastic says, how does the scoring system work?
So it's based on, well, we do have leaderboards.
Okay.
Leaderboards are based on the number of badges you found throughout the game. So you want to go back and play and replay levels, find all the badges. But it's also based on time, so how fast you've beaten the levels, how fast you've beaten the entire game. So again, that's sort of one of the things that encourages speedrunning. So, if you want to get up there on the leaderboards, you got to not only get 100% on all the levels, you got to do it the fastest.
Gotcha.
And then on top of that...
Does it give more weight to one or the other on the leaderboards?
So it starts off with badges. Whoever has more badges gets higher, but once there's a tie in the badges, it looks at your time.
Gotcha.
But once you beat the game, we do have a surprise super hardcore mode which gets unlocked, which I'm really excited to see how people handle that. So I'm not even going to go into that, but that's something else that people will discover, and I think people will eat that kind of stuff up.
I feel like the thing for me is, and I've seen a couple comments from people who are watching where I can tell it's similar. When you're new to this game, when you haven't played it a lot, the rate at which you're dying is very stressful.
Yeah.
It looks wrong how much you're dying.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of an issue that we found. Like the fact that people feel that death is sort of a failure is something that's sort of ingrained, and it's understandable. But we have some nice tutorials set up that sort of walk you through this process slowly. Because right now we're sort of just throwing you in the deep end, and these are pretty hard levels, so you're dying pretty quickly. But as you play the game, you realize that dying is not the same thing in most traditional games. So it stops feeling as stressful anymore because even if you die, just rewind, and it's not a big deal. You have 30 lives.
And is that timer, somebody wants to know, if you can't get through the level by the time that timer ends, is that it for you? Is that the deal?
So you have a certain amount of time to get through a level. But again, there's like clocks hidden throughout the level that you can find to extend your time. But the primary way that you get more time is just by, like, here's a good example. So I realized that I went down there to grab this collectible, And that probably took me about 10 seconds. So if I rewind back, I can just not go down there because that guy's going to go down there for me. And now I've just saved 10 seconds. So these are sort of ways that we designed the levels to sort of encourage utilizing this time and duplication mechanic.
Yeah. And I would imagine also that you get to something like a boss or an area like this, since you're always rewinding to get more guys with you, that timer becomes less and less of an issue.
Yeah, exactly. So you learn how to sort of optimize as your run, which is, it's also kind of interesting because it has a lot of parallels to tool-assisted speedrunning. If you're not familiar with it, it's where people just play the game in an emulator and they sort of replay certain sections over and over until they have the perfect run-through.
Right.
So it's kind of similar to how you play this game, which again is a sort of a nod to the speedrunning community.
Black September asks, will it have D-pad movement support? He's on the D-pad right now.
Yeah, I'm on the D-pad. I'm an old school D-padder. I never really got too good with analog nubs.
Especially on something like this.
Yeah.
There's nothing that drives me more nuts than when they do either just an HD upgrade or release a classic game on a console and it only uses the analog stick for movement. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, there is something about the old school games, like the way the movement is designed. You know, it's really sort of meant for D-pads, the feedback of the clicks and all that stuff. So I'm glad that controllers still have D-pads because I would use them over analog sticks any day. But, you know, you can't play a FPS with a D-pad, unfortunately.
Welcome to New Home Depot.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Oh, that was Mike, the artist. He just throws things in there without telling us.
That's amazing. I love that. You know who else does that really well? And I think, are they around you too? Or no, they might be in Austin. Drinkbox?
Drinkbox. Yes, they're also Toronto.
In Toronto?
Yeah, they are our neighbors.
I knew they were either in Toronto or Austin, but they love doing the same thing
Yeah, exactly.
too.
Guacamelee is filled with awesome references and jokes that you just... I don't even notice it, but once you go back and watch someone else play it, you're like, oh man, that's hilarious.
There's just this great feeling when that happens where it's just like you're not letting any part of your game go to waste.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
It just, I don't know, it's like, it shows how much they care about it, like every single element. Someone took the time to think about it and inject a little bit of their personality into it. So I like that about indie games.
Hey man, how much dubstep is in the game?
We experimented with dubstep, of course. We included some dubstep.
I hope in a safe lab environment.
No, unfortunately not. So we experimented with some dubstep in one of our trailers, and you know, it was mixed reaction. But for our game, we actually have some really amazing chiptunes by another friend of ours from Toronto. He's a chiptune artist named 6955. So he does amazing work.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He's been in the chiptune scene for a long time. So we're really excited to have the opportunity to, you know, have an original soundtrack, all done by him. So there's tons of original music in this game. So if anyone's a big fan of chiptune music, then they should enjoy the stuff that we have lined up in this game.
DC13FC says, speaking of music, do you guys have any plans to work with Jim Guthrie again?
Actually, we do. Yes, who would have known? So for our next project, we're working on an Xbox One title called Below. We haven't released much information about it, but it has a very similar aesthetic to Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery. Not in the pixel adventure game style, but you know, sort of the mood. And because of that, we're also working with Jim Guthrie again to do all the music. And you know, we're super excited because you know, I've heard some of the stuff that they're doing, and man, it's amazing. So yeah, if you're a fan of Jim Guthrie, look out for Below. It should be up your alley.
See, and this is great, and this is really driving home what you were talking about earlier, which is you're just playing until the clock runs out, and you're playing really cleanly.
Yeah.
But this guy is just too powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So I just need to really stack up a bunch of guys and throw rockets in his face.
Are there weapon upgrades of any kind in the game?
No, we sort of treat weapons as the unlockable characters.
Yeah.
So as you unlock characters, they each have their own primary attack, secondary attack, maybe slightly different movement abilities. And of course, when you power up, you can combine. So that's sort of a way to experiment with combining weapons together.
I like this old wizard dude.
Yeah, Merlin. Oh yeah, Merlin. So he's another guy that you rescue.
His name is just Merlin?
Yeah, it's actually Merlin.
That's Merlin?
Yeah.
Nice.
And he's wearing a Speedo.
Speedo Merlin.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't know that about wizards.
That's where their true power comes from.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, that is super time for us. Thank you, Ken, for coming by.
No problem.
Once again, just to hit down all the salient points here. May or June?
Yes.
Xbox 360 and Xbox One to start.
Yes.
And $15 is what you're looking for, but that's not set in stone right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thanks a lot for coming by, man.
Yeah,
this
thanks
is great.
for having me.
And if they want to keep up with you guys, you're just capygames.com, right?
Yep, capybaragames.com
Capybara Games.
or supertimeforce.com.
Awesome. And yeah, remember, guys, Ken is here showing this off because of GDC. We have a lot of GDC coverage this week. So look at that stuff on our YouTube, youtube.com/rev3games. If you're not following us, follow us. If you're not favoriting us on Twitch, favorite us on Twitch. Do all the social networks. Go to your Friendsters and your Bebos and your Orchids and just add us to all that stuff. I feel like that's good.
Yeah, Friendsters, that's
I hit them all, right?
Yeah.
Friendster, Bebo, Orchid. That's all of them.
ICQ. I don't know if you use
ICQ. What's your ICQ number if people want to get in touch with you?
246-3333, and that is actually correct.
Is it really?
Yeah. So I still remember it. I have a 7-digit. I'm one of the OGs.
Hit them up on ICQ.